Okay, so let's just start with how did you first find out about me?
I first found out about you I was doing an FL Studio search, how to learn FL Studio for beginners. YouTube is easy to go into, but I wanted to kind of get reviews and see stuff. So it was basically through YouTube. I didn't know you were Beat Struggles until I actually started doing one of your courses, and you said it in one of your intros.
Okay.
But it was on the internet. I found out about you, and I saw a few reviews and a couple of your videos, because I did pay maybe $10-20 for some FL Studio beginners course that promised the world, the moon, the sky, and the stars, and I went in and did it. But it started off, let's make a song. Okay, I didn't even know what the project picker was, the channel rack was. They don't go into any of that. So it took me for ages, and I said, oh, what a waste of money. I'm glad it wasn't that expensive. So, I took a chance, and then I really researched it, and I came across you, and I could see, right, the biggest advantage I think you have is that you seem to understand. You started with nothing yourself. You seem to understand. You're the only guy that I know that inside your tutorials, you talk about the tools to use it at the DAW. You don't go straight into the DAW. You talk about Focusrite Scarlett or other interfaces, a microphone. These are the basic things you need, and this is how you set them up. And here's a MIDI keyboard. This is how you set up your MIDI keyboard. I would have known none of that until you gave me reassurance in your tutorials. Grant, you look it up on the internet and you get a fair idea, but there is nothing better than engaging with someone, or even if it's a recorded video. There's nothing better for me, because you're doing it there and then, and you're learning. So that's what really made me appreciate that. This guy, these tutorials are probably good. So it was worth then investing and saying, look, I want to buy a beginner's course. Try it out, and if it worked, it worked, and I honestly think it did.
Awesome. Yeah, so, and then you jumped into the membership later on. And
I did, and in fairness, you looked after me well, So
yeah. That leads me to my next question is, so from version 1, because you joined on version 1 of the website, and now you're experiencing version 2.
Mm-hmm.
And so what are your thoughts with the new revamp, with the new upgraded website? Like, are you finding it easy to
I suppose I'm lucky in the sense that I've seen the old version and the new version, as you say, and I could see the transition. No, I'm no tech head, but look, I know enough about websites and going into different websites. But there was nothing wrong with the first one, but you can see that the next one is fresher. It's much. You've moved with the times. For especially for a beginner to be able to go into your website, I think you've got everything very well structured out, and it's very user friendly.
Awesome.
You can go in, you know exactly where your courses are, you know exactly if you want to buy drum samples or go into the shop or whatever, you can book one-on-one lessons. And I think the biggest plus is your pathways, especially for beginners. Okay. I can go in, I know exactly where I left off, where I finished, and it keeps track. The main conclusion to your question for me is that your new website, once you open the homepage, you know exactly where you are, and you can just click wherever you want to go. It's very user-friendly interface, I think.
Okay, so what are you learning right now, and what are you kind of struggling with, like with FL Studio and music production? And
yeah, well, look, what I'm struggling with, I suppose there's no one thing I'm struggling with. Well, there are many different things I struggle with, but I don't leave myself. This is linked with the 6 months thing. I thought I'd be brilliant after 6 months, I know you have to take baby steps before you take the big steps. Mm-hmm. So I kind of, I made myself do your pathways, and I did all the beginners. I stopped the beginners, and then went over to piano lessons, because there's no point in me being able to make music, or there's no point in me learning stuff when I can't make music. I need to know how to play, at least get the basic chords, and get what sounds right. Mm-hmm. Now I probably have a good ear for music, but I can't play any instruments. So your piano lessons to me were a big plus. And when I went back to the pathways, I realized that you had updated the beginners section as well. And that was with, I think it's the last one, sound design basics.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? Again, I said, this guy is thinking right, because for me, EQ going into the parametric number 2, is it? Or 2, is it? Yep. You use Pro Fab Filter or something, is it? Fab Filter?
Yeah, so Fab Filter is just a third-party, plugin, but then the Parametric EQ2 comes with FL Studio.
Yeah, I see people use it on YouTube, and that course that I bought, the original one, and this guy was just going in and saying, I'm going to put a bit of EQ in this, but he wasn't explaining what he was doing, and I got completely just, why is he doing this? So if I had any question, that's what I would be saying to you. What am I finding the hardest at the moment? Well, it's one thing putting up a number of patterns on your screen and playing them, but you need to make them sound good. It's nice to open reverb and get a bit of reverb on sound. It makes a piano sound much more better, or any drum or whatever. But when it comes to opening up the EQ, you kind of say to myself, what am I even doing here? Why am I doing this? You know?
Totally.
I don't understand it.
Yeah, as soon as you step into mixing, it's a totally different world. And that's what I try to stress. And I think I've talked about it in a couple of my courses where I try to break down the different stages of production, right? So we have beat making, mixing, arranging, mastering, and then there's sound design, right? And each of these are totally different industries. And it's these, there's professionals that do just that task. And then if you're trying to learn it just, to make your beats, it's that's where it's overwhelming and that's where it's tiring. Because if you're for sure, right? So as soon if you're wanting to make a beat, well, it's you don't need to learn sound design. You can just use something like Serum or what I used to start with. And I've actually been going back through a whole bunch of my notebooks and stuff, just from when I first started. And one, something that really helped me take off was actually Nexus 2. And I was looking into Nexus 2 and I used to use it tons. But the reason why I stopped using it is because you needed a USB e-licenser dongle. And if you lost if you lost that dongle, you lost your software. And so I was using it so much, and I was I don't really want to handcuff myself just to this little dongle. So after 4 years of using it, but anyways, they came up with Nexus 3. And then for me, it was just $100 upgrade, and you no longer need that e-licenser. And in the past week, I've been using Nexus 3, and it just instantly made me be this is what I first learned making music on. And so the downside to Nexus 3 is you can't really sound design. You can a little bit, but it's not like something like Serum or Silence 1 where you get wave forms where you can you can actually do sound design. Nexus is all about picking a beautiful sound and making a beat. That's all it's about.
Yeah, so that would be the equivalent of Flex in FL Studio.
Exactly. And and I've been thinking about, because I'm coming out with season 2 for the podcast here, and I want to make it I'm taking my time on it, because every single day I keep thinking about things when I first started. And so comparing Nexus 3 to Flex, I feel that Flex is almost it's kind of trying to be like Nexus 3, even if they're actually trying to be, but in my opinion, they're the same thing. And what it is, it's called a rompler. So ROMPLER, rompler.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're doing is you're taking pre-made sounds and you're making melodies, and that's what Flex is. And I personally don't feel that Flex is at that point. Compared to Nexus 3, because Nexus has been around for so long. It's if you look at their page and so what I'm just trying to say behind it is that's really where I took off with FL Studio, was because I didn't need to really focus on sound design. I didn't really yes, I needed to learn the mixing and the mastering, but when it came to Nexus, it was just a matter of just picking a sound and you're making your melody. You want a guitar sound, boom. You want a piano sound, boom. Bass, it's there. Leads, pads. So that was just a huge helper to me. And in recent years, let's say in the past 4 or 5 years, I kind of switched to the Serum and the Silence 1 because of that e-licenser dongle, right? And whenever I've been talking, I've been more talking about, oh yeah, Serum or Silence One, because you want to avoid the Nexus. But what I'm going to be talking about in the new season is, Nexus 3 is a game changer for me. Like it's how I make my music. Like if you listen to like my beat tapes, so volume 1, 2, 3, and 4. I think 5. I think I had Nexus as well, and then later on I started kind of making music a bit differently. But in those first releases, I was using Nexus, and like you're gonna hear strings, you're gonna hear like horns, like a lot of kind of orchestra kind of sounds, and
Yeah.
like that's why I liked Nexus, but it allowed me to excel really fast because I didn't need to get stuck on like the sound design stuff, and yeah, like personally, I usually find that a lot of FL Studio stuff, it's very overwhelming. Like when you first like look at their stuff. Like if you look at like Harmer, or if you look at Citrus or Sakura,
Yes, there's some
like
traces.
yeah, like if you load it up, like to me, I'm not a super technical person. Like eventually I can learn something, but like if I learn something, I kind of get the hang of it, but it takes me a while to learn it. And
Yeah.
when I look at like Citrus and stuff, I found that it's very hard to learn. Like it's just like this is technical. But if you use something like Nexus 3, which is kind of like Flex, you're just picking a sound and then you're trying to make a melody, which is especially when you're first starting, that's what you want. Like you want to
Yes.
learn that, right? Like you want to learn the software. Sound design, like I said, even for myself, I learned sound design after like 7 or 8 years of producing. And then finally it was like, oh, okay. But do you need it? I don't know. Like I would say no. Like you really don't to be a beat maker, because why not pay the professionals like $40 for a sound pack, load it in, and you have amazing sounds. And then you, as the producer, beat maker, you can start making your beats.
Yeah.
So
So you're for your last statement there. You're for someone buying, let the professionals make the sounds and use their sounds.
yeah, like it all comes down to what you want, right? And like I said, so just like so what today is the 13th in September 2020. I think I purchased Nexus like five days ago, like Nexus 3, because I always use Nexus 2, and then I stopped using it because of that licensor
The
dongle.
dongle, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I just I was like, Nexus 3, I just want to take a peek at it. And then all of a sudden I saw on their product description, they actually said, we listened to you guys. We have removed the e-licenser dongle. And I was just like, okay, that's interesting, because
Respect.
because now it's like, well, that's what I always used to use. So, and then since I already had it, it was just $100 upgrade for me. So I was like, well, let's do it. And I loaded it. It was a seamless upgrade. And then all of a sudden, I started playing with like, all the instruments again. And I was like, man, like this is how I used to make music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you literally, like, here, let me just share my screen with you. Yeah. So like this is Nexus 3, and like, it's just, this is what I've always used to make music. And like you have everything from like arpeggios. So in recent years, when I started using like Serum and Silence One, yeah, they have you can do arpeggios, but it's just Nexus 3. Like they have just such beautiful arpeggios built in, right? There's like
Oh, they're already done for you.
oh yeah, and like they're super
Yeah.
nice. And then even like you have like classical sounds, so like flutes, horns, strings, like brass sounds. Like if you want to get orchestra kind of sounds, like, and for me it's like I love that stuff in beats. Like a horn, or like
Yeah.
guitars, leads, organ sounds. This is like essentially the kind of like Omnisphere. I've never used Omnisphere. I've always just used Nexus.
Okay.
But like what I'm just trying to say is like it was just kind of like an awakening moment where I was just like, man, this is how I used to make music.
Yeah.
This was me. This is like, I just picked a sound and I made beats. Um
Yes.
so yeah. Um
Okay.
okay, so I guess another question I have, and then I'll also just kind of leave it open just for any kind of questions you have, is so how would you say that I've kind of helped you along the way? And then I know you already kind of said it, but so why do you enjoy my courses over, like, let's say YouTube tutorials and stuff like that?
Well, I suppose one of the most important things is that um, you there's a large element of learning by doing in your tutorials. And I think when somebody engages with stuff rather than just watching it, it's easier to learn when you're engaging it and you're actually doing what you're doing on screen. Now, that doesn't happen 100% of the time, but you see, before it, you explain what you're going to do, and then you go in. I mean, I've often in parts of your excuse me, in parts of your tutorials, I'd stop the tutorial and I'd put in the same stuff that you have on your oh, the on your FL Studio panel, you know, the patterns. Sorry, and I'd actually stop and I'd look at your piano roll and I'd spend maybe 5-10 minutes putting in the tune you have in there, you know.
Okay.
Just it might be basic, but that helps me, you know. But I'm doing what you're doing and I'm copying what you're doing. And if you're pressing Control Z, Control Alt Z, I mean, I didn't know any of this. You know, there's simple things that speeds everything up. You keep repeating what you're doing. You keep saying what you're doing, and there's nothing better than that. You know,
Okay.
It might be a pain in the butt for someone that's experienced and listening to you saying, "Here I'm going in," you know, pressing F9, F10, F this, F that. I mean, to me, that's valuable. To a beginner, that's very valuable because I'm doing stuff now that I didn't do 3 months ago, and I'm doing it without thinking about it.
Yeah. Are you starting to learn like keyboard shortcuts? Like, are you starting to learn the F9, F10 to the settings, F6 and
I've never come across anybody talking about the number pad, the plus and the minus, and simple.
I'm actually going to create a dedicated, I have a bunch of ideas, but now that the new site is available, now that that was 3 months of like 8 hours a day, like weekends involved, like just and so it's out, and like, you know, now I have a list of a bunch of different things that, you know, but I want to create one on the number pad because it's, as soon as you learn it in FL Studio, it's a game changer.
Yeah, well, I think that's why you're ahead of a lot of the game, Riley. Isn't that you think of things like that and you do? They're the simple things, and they're all the tools that will eventually come second nature to people when they're starting to make beats. You know, so that's why I stuck with you, to be honest about it.
Awesome.
And that's why I find your tutorials are definitely. It's not all about the panel and the picker and everything. It's how you use the tools before you get into these things, you know, because they're the fundamentals are the most important thing.
Okay, yeah. So right now in your productions though, do you have any kind of questions that we can kind of fit in, or?
Yeah, well, look, I emailed you during the week, and that's another compliment I have to give you. You're very quick to respond as well. In fairness, you know, you really engage with obviously the people they ask you questions, and you're back to somebody within 24 hours, sometimes within 10 minutes, depending on what part of the world or what part of the day it is for you, you know. So I think that's very important for beginners as well.
Are you able to share your screen? Everything's looking good now. Do you have any projects that like you've been working on like yourself?
No, what I've done is I've made a 30-second chord progression or something. I've recorded and then I'd go in and practice reverb in it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I haven't actually. I intend to do that, but I didn't want to do stuff and confuse myself. I mean, this is something you've taught me here: reverb 1, 2, and delay. You know, but I don't know where I have to put distortion. I don't know where I'm going to use stereo separation. The only thing I know here is reverb. So
for sure.
Yeah.
So just to share with you though, so yeah, like how I would mix my tracks is like when I'm in the mixing stage, you know, if I want some more fullness out of the sound, like let's say, you know, you're mixing and you just can't get it right or something, you know, you can just kind of click it, add it into like the distortion a little bit, and you don't have to put it in fully. Like you can just put like maybe 25%, and you know, it can just add more fullness to your overall track. And you know, with drums, you can try it with your drums. Like your drums will instantly start hitting harder and stuff like that.
Yeah, with distortion.
Yeah, for sure. The distortion. And then I also have a parallel compression track if you look in my courses and tutorials and stuff too. So in addition to your sends on the far left there, you have stereo separation. I think to the right, I would put like a parallel compression, and it's essentially doing the same thing as the distortion. It's just a kind of a more of a cleaner, thicker sound whereas distortion is adding some kind of grit, but it's just adding, again, it's just going to help your drums and essentially everything just sound fuller, right?
Okay, so I mean, you asked me there if I'm making any of my own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not. It's the short answer, but I'm doing small little snippets and bits and pieces. But you touched on it earlier on as well. That there are three different things: the making the music, the mix, the mixing, and then the mastering.
Yeah.
But should I just go the whole length of the pattern song, and then go into the mixer and start mixing it? Or would you not put a little bit of reverb here and there every now and then, or would you leave that completely alone until your whole song is invented and say, I'm going to put automation here, I'm going to put reverb there, I'm going to put compression here? Or do you do little bits and pieces of that as you go along?
Yeah, so when I make my beat, I'm mostly focused on making the beat, and I say that just to get to the point of a decent kind of idea of what the song sounds like, right? So for example, like, let's say, I make my drum loop. Let's say I start making some melodies, and let's say, I add in that one final instrument to kind of get to like the chorus. And, I would just have probably, let's say, 10 to 15 different patterns going on, right? And it's like, so right there, imagine that is my complete chorus. And then from there, I would just kind of drag all those sounds. I would use that shortcut, Control and B, as in Bob, just to actually duplicate everything. And then I would just start actually removing some patterns, right? Now I'm kind of, so what I would be, so now I'm moving on to kind of like the bones of the song, the arrangement, the structure. And I'm just trying to figure out, what's my intro? What's my verse? What's my bridge? What's my, right? And then there's just a general idea. And once I kind of get that going on, then I'm listening to, how does the song actually balance? And as I'm actually building my beat, if you feel that you want to sound design, one or two sounds, yeah, you can add that to the mixer, apply your effects on, do your thing. But I usually find for myself, and again, I always speak from my point of view because everyone's different, right?
Yeah.
But I usually find as soon as I start going to the mixer, it pulls me away from the actual progression, or no, so it pulls me away from like making my music, right?
Oh,
And
that's a valid point. Yeah.
yeah, so like my mindset is I'm trying to finish my song, like in a sense of like my notes, and then I build out the song, the arrangement, and then I kind of get into like the mixing and the balancing, and then I'm just listening to the song as a whole. It's like when it gets to the chorus, is it missing another instrument? And if it is, well, then I'll add another one in. But, at that time, all of my sounds are added to the mixer. I have probably already color coded. Mastering is the very, very last step. But on the master, if you just click on your master, let's just see what you have going on your master track. Okay,
Well,
so you got nothing. So usually on every single master, you would want that lean loudness meter as the very, very last. So I would put that on 10. Okay, on slot 10. Okay, this is just for you to know. I would put the lean loudness meter, and that is going to let you know the loudness of your audio. And then in slot 9, I would put a limiter. Okay, so whether you want to use like if you just have like the stock plugins, you would use the Fruity limiter, and then for the threshold. Even if you want to open it up, if you just go to slot 9 there, or just go to slot 9 and then just go to select and Fruity limiter. You just passed it. It's in dynamics, so it keep going up. It's in the middle.
This guy here. Oh, it's parametric. Sorry.
Yeah, it's in the middle. Go down 3. You got it. Okay, yeah. So and then the ceiling, you'd want to put that to -1. So this is a trend that is going on right now. And
I saw this on your tutorials.
Yeah,
actually,
yeah. So you'd put that to -1. So and if you can't get it, hold down Control, and you can fine tune. Like it allows you to adjust really micro numbers. Yeah, perfect. You got it. So the whole idea behind that concept is when it goes to MP3 and those types of lossy codecs, MP3, if your audio goes over this ceiling, this threshold, it can distort in these lossy codecs like MP3 and stuff. So that has been the trend, because for a while it was -0.1. Okay, so not -1, it was -0.1. Okay, and then it went to -0.3. And then finally they came
Oh
out with
yeah, I remember telling me that. Yeah.
yeah, then finally now it's -1. And this is all to do with like the loudness wars and like with Spotify and, you know,
Okay.
right? This is more, you know, this is more advanced, but I'm just breaking it down for you. So on your master, this is what you'd want. You'd want, you know, -1. You'd want to put your loudness meter in your slot 10 because that's
Yeah.
going to tell you exactly what your audio is when you
Hmm.
export it.
I'm sure I have you lean somewhere in here.
Yeah, let's
Uh,
see.
I'll throw it in there. It's. I know I have it because I downloaded it from one of your tutorials.
That's what I would do. And then it gives you an idea of where you are. And the reason why I said go to your master is because I was talking to you about my whole mindset in the production. So I start with, you know, making the beat. For the most part, I am not like I'm never going to the mixer. Except maybe for one special sound. And typically that one special sound would be like, you know, that one special sound that really makes the chorus or something as I'm sound
Okay. Okay.
designing.
Okay.
And then, yeah, I break apart the song in terms of arrangement. Right? I start thinking about intro, verse, chorus, and then I start adding all my sounds to the mixer. I would start color coding, getting organized, and then on the master track, I would usually have some light compression going on because it just makes your mixing a little bit easier on you because when there's some compression going on, it just kind of glues everything just gently. You got to be really, really careful. Like, you know, if you're, you know, still new, I would say don't even worry about it. But it's just something that it just helps you as you are mixing. It kind of just goes into that processor, into that compressor, and it just kind of just makes your actual mixing a lot easier.
Yeah. Well, I think right, that was actually one of my questions that I wrote down. Actually, really, I 3 or 4 questions written down. I've gone through 1 or 2 of them already, but my intention is to maybe just progress in the next month or so, progress into the intermediate side of things, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and refer back to the beginners every now and then when I get stuck in something. But once I have that complete, I mean, I'll start making a beat in the meantime and, you know, use what I'm learning to the beat. But your one-on-one tutorials there that I see you've advertised on the site, on one of the links, is it possible then for me to make a beat, okay, and have a raw beat would be the best way to say it, completely raw,
Mm-hmm.
and then go on for the hour? You record. I think you said you record them as well, and you give back the recording to the student. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. So,
And
yeah, yeah.
and, and can you take me through the song? Then this is you should be putting compression on this part, or you should be putting that on this, or is that what these one-on-ones are for the purpose of?
Yeah. So, yeah. What you're talking about is lessons, and for sure. So inside of a lesson, it can be anything that you want to get out of it, right?
Okay.
So if you're wanting to learn about chords, we can do chords. If you're wanting to learn about mixing, we can do mixing, right?
All right.
Or if you have a project, like you're saying, if you have a raw project and you're like, man, I want to learn how to make this to the next level, like you know,
Yeah.
when it comes to even my progressions, when it comes to my notes, when it comes to my sounds, all that kind of stuff, you know, we would look at it. And, you know, I would even say to you, send it to me beforehand. And you'd have to make sure that I have the same, like, you know, plugins or same sounds that you just used so that, you know, I can
Yes.
open it up. But yeah, for sure. Like the whole idea behind the lessons is what you are wanting out of it. So in the
Yeah.
email, so, you know, if you were to reach out to that, it all comes down to what you're asking in the email. Like, hey, you know, I'm trying to figure out how to promote myself as a, you know, as a beat maker. I want to learn how to sell my beats, right? So we could talk about that. It's whatever you're wanting out of it. That full hour is dedicated to you for sure.
For some reason, there was 4. I don't know what you call. See these things here? They're wires, I suppose. Is that
Yep.
the best description of them?
Totally. Yep.
There was nothing here. Okay, I had to put these in myself, but for some reason, there were 4 wires coming off most of the first 16, I suppose, the first 16 inserts. There was 4 wires going off, and they were going up into 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, with no description or nothing or no effects or nothing. Is there a reason why that?
Yeah. So FL Studio back in the day, they used to always have 4 inserts. So you see how I have put, you know, from you watching my courses and tutorials, I always have my inserts at my sends at the front, because it just makes it so easy as you're mixing, right? If you want to add something, like boom, right? You're nice and quick.
Yes. Yes.
But so we have custom made those sends. FL Studio back in the day, they used to have 4 inserts on the far right of your mixer. And
Okay.
and that's what they were used for. They were meant as sends. And then in recent years, they've kind of pulled away from that. I don't really know what their game plan is with that, but you might have been on an FL Studio template where it was automatically set up so that every single one of your inserts would actually be routing to it.
Yes.
But it would be routing at 0 volume, which means that, no audio is going to it. And if you wanted it to, you could just increase it. But as FL Studio has progressed, or sorry, yeah.
But are you saying so that those 4 inserts I could have put in reverb 1, 2 delay into it and the start? Is that they're already set that up for you?
Yep.
For the purposes of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I could have just gone up and moved them all down to.
Yeah, for sure. But like I said, in recent versions of FL Studio, typically like they're always kind of hidden. And then I was actually trying to play with it the other night, and I couldn't even find those 4 inserts that we're talking about for the sends. And like I said, in recent years, I've just found that I'll just make my own, and it's just easier. Kind of on the same lines of like when I talk about creating your own custom music production folder, like it's best just to, create your own folder so that you can back it up, that you're not really stuck inside of FL Studio's file system. That it's just like, you are yourself, you're doing your own thing, and then you're bringing your music into FL Studio. The same thing with these sends, these inserts that we've created. It's just super easy. FL Studio can do whatever they do for that stuff, but by doing it this way, it's just nice and easy.
Okay. So my last question.
Oh, for sure, Michael.
My last question was actually, it's to do with this as well. Okay, this is a perfect example. This parallel processing is what you call it, yeah?
Correct. Yep.
Right. Now, I don't know what it is, but I'm copying you. This is okay. But my understanding of this, before you explain to me what it is, and hopefully I'm somewhere right, so I might have an understanding, is that this bass drum is going raw, as the word I like to use, into the master, okay?
Correct.
So it's going in sounding normal, and I'm putting a reverb on it separately. Mm-hmm. So now, and the reverb is going into the master, okay? So now I've got the drum is the drum going into the master twice? One reverb and one raw.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's what's actually happening.
Yep, you got it.
So is that more advantageous than just putting the drum itself into the master and putting the reverb on the drum?
For sure. So parallel processing will always give you more flexibility and just you can be way more creative with it. So
it seems to be more advanced, an advanced version of just doing it on its own.
Yeah. So when you add an effect on right to the sound, it's like that sound goes right onto the sound no matter what. And then if you add more effects on, everything is kind of getting added on more and more, right? Yeah. When you are, essentially T-tapping off of, so on that little arrow, so on 15, yeah, exactly. So if you follow from right there, so when I was an electrician, sometimes people call it like T-tapping or just like splicing, right? So when you actually T-tap off of there, so you are going to the reverb, so which means that you have literally taken kind of like a clone of that audio signal, and now you can do anything you want with it, but it's not affecting the original signal, which is going to your master. And in your case with drums, so drums and reverb, you got to be a little bit careful with. So for example, if you open up your reverb, so go and click on insert 1 and then open up your Fruity Reverb 2. If you open that up, so what you'll want to do is you see your L cut, the low cut. Yeah. So typically, if you do add some reverb to your drum, you do want to kind of cut some low end off of that drum, so that way your drum hits hard and you can still kind of get some reverb too. If you're adding reverb onto like that low end, like in the 50, 60 hertz, you can just kind of be smearing, that tight low end of what you want. So you can actually increase that, or if you want to take it another step further, you can open up an EQ after that reverb, and you can cut out some lows, or you can even cut out some mids, because sometimes in like those low mids, your mix can kind of get muddy and stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So to answer your question, so if you click back to 15, just so we can see the audio cables. Yeah. So what you said was essentially 2 versions of that sound is going to the master, and yes, that's what's happening. But the whole benefit is, yes, it's an advanced trick, and you are duplicating the signal so that you can literally do anything you want to that duplicated signal, affect it however you want. And the benefit of that is you can blend it in. Yeah, like if you got one more question, man, we'll answer it, and then we'll wrap up here. But this has been awesome, dude. This has been really good.
I actually don't. I don't have any more questions, but like I was actually going to ask you, do you have any more questions, or is there anything else that I need to do to you to help you promote the new site or the new this new thing? Because it's nice to be part of this, because I mean, it works both ways. You're helping me, and so I'd like to give something back as well and help it. I have no problem with that.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess to close out, I guess what I would say is this something that you wish you would have, do you wish that you would have found me and my courses and my website sooner?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Definitely, because it was frustrating at the start. And as I said, it became overwhelming to me. And then I said, take a step back here. And even in one of your intros, in your very first tutorial, you explained the music industry. What do you want to take out of this? Do you want it for enjoyment?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to become a professional? At the end of the day, I don't think when you're starting out that matters. You just need to learn your tools first and then decide, well, you know what? I'm good enough and I want to be a pro, or I'm giving up my job. I've got to make music. It's not, if only it was that easy, but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I get hours and hours of enjoyment out of this. It's a great de-stressor for me. And, I have this, where I'm sitting now is 20 meters from my house. My work is over here, and I separate my music over on this side. So I separate work from music,
Cool.
So that's where I am. And that's what, so if only 20 years later, I'm getting around to doing what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you also said in your early tutorials that this was untouchable 20 years ago. You're physically bringing in soundboards and you're buying instruments, and everything is at the click of a button.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And you're providing the tools for me to learn that. And you're doing it well, because I can understand a lot of the stuff you do, and you're practical. You just get the message across. You have that knack. Do you understand the word knack? Is that
for sure? Yeah. Yeah.
You just have the knack of making things simplistic,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, thank you. No, teaching is definitely a passion of mine. It's not just it's just I remember when I was in school, I think it was in grade 6. So we had an assignment, the teacher gave us an assignment, and he said, this is your homework. You have to describe how to blow up a balloon in 5 steps.
Yeah.
And so when I explained it, even back in grade 6, I broke it down. I was like, okay, so you want to grab your index finger and your thumb, right? And I just broke, and the teacher was just what I said made sense. It was like, so yeah, like you said, in this world, everyone has their gifts, and, teaching, I like to teach, and, I'm so grateful that, you're learning. I can see on your screen that, you're getting your color coding down. One thing that I would say to you is that I would set aside some time for you to start learning to make your own beats a little bit. Start, just try making some chords. It's going to be the only way for you to really learn it, because, like you just said, by doing, right. And, if you want to, do this on the side, like you're saying about, bringing in MIDI files and just seeing, how the song's built, and making some of your old favorites that you used to listen to, that's totally cool. But, you do want to learn how to make your own stuff. And at the end of the day, you're going to be so grateful that you just kind of pushed yourself to do that, for sure. Again, how I make music might not be how you make music, but at the same time, I like to keep things simple, but I also like good results. So again, every single day I keep thinking about how did I start, or different things. And again, even when I use Nexus 3 there, I was just like, wow, this is this brings back the memories of this is how I started. And it really helped me accelerate So again, Flex is cool. It's awesome. I was able to get, good sounds out of it, but it's just, if you experience Nexus, which is now Nexus 3, it was just like, okay, this is next level. Like, this is like, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
ready.
well, Serum as well. I have Serum, so that's something I should really be mastering time on as well, learning that, But your sound design is going to help me with Serum, actually, isn't it? Your sound design
Totally.
basic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that course, that Sound Design Basics 101, that's going to teach you, how to use like any synth. And it's just like, the basic principles of sound design. But again, I really didn't learn the sound design stuff until like 7-8 years in. So
Okay.
when I first learned FL Studio, and the reason why I accelerated so fast is honestly because of Nexus. And it was
Okay.
because, which is just like Flex. Okay. So, the whole goal of Flex is for you to pick a sound and for you to make a beat. And that's all that Nexus 3 was. It's not, if you want a sound design, yeah, you can adjust some knobs, but you really don't have the actual foundation of that sound. You can kind of only adjust like on top of the sound.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay.
again, like I'm saying, like for myself, I do suggest that you check out like my volume like 2, volume 3, volume 4 beat tape, like when you have time, and that will give you a really good representation of like my Nexus 2 startups.
Okay.
Like okay,
Yeah.
and then my later beats were more like the Serum Silent one, and then even when I was using a single guitar note, I was kind of getting into that, which creates really beautiful music. But the problem with that single guitar note is when it comes to like the bass line, as well as when I record that guitar note, it can also have some noise. Like let's say, if the air conditioning's on, or like even like your computer fan, or if there's noise outside, whatever, or even noise of the actual preamp. Okay, your actual preamp itself can have noise when you record. And when you record, when I'm making a single beat out of a single guitar note with this recording, and if it has noise, that could be introduced into every single instrument. The bass line could be hard. When you're using a synth, right, such as like, again, like Flex, Serum, Nexus, these are like super high quality sounds. You don't have to deal with any of that stuff. And that's when so. Yeah. Well, awesome, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
Thanks, Riley. And look, I know you always say this, don't ever be afraid to reach out. I say the same to you. Don't ever be afraid to.
Yeah. And I know that you were talking about, you want to see a beat from the beginning, and for sure that will be coming. I may not use stock FL Studio stuff though. And the reason I say that is because that's not how I work. FL Studio is great, but in some areas I feel that they need to upgrade, such as like on their plugins, such as like their EQs, their compressors. I feel that stuff needs an update. It needs to be able to compete with, let's say maybe not with FabFilter, but if you go to a music program like Logic or Ableton, like, they're built-in stock essential tools. And for us as producers, like those are EQs, compressors, multiband compressors, limiters, stuff like that. I personally feel that they need like a revamp. And again, I've been planning the podcast, and these are things that I want to talk about, because if I talk about them, it might get some talk going on, and FL Studio might implement them. They might be like, you know what? Yeah, we need, right? So, but like I said, in this course, which you've been talking about, and I might even create like a kind of series of these, we're going to make a beat from scratch, and then number 2 and number 3, but I might not use, third party, or stock FL Studio stuff. And the reason for is just, I want to make it as if this is me, this is how I make my beats, and I'll bring you into my world when I make the beats. Like, this is what I use. You don't have to have the sounds, but you can still learn as I'm doing.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's fair enough. That's a good argument. I can't argue that.
Well, because otherwise what's going to happen is I'll be using the stock stuff, and it's not how I make a beat. So I can't truly excel. Like, I might be trying to learn it even as I'm teaching, and it's just like, no. Like, I want to be able to just flow and tell you exactly why, for whatever reason. And it's just like, okay, moving on. Because like, to make a whole beat into a course, I don't want it to be like a 20-hour course, right? We make our melodies, we make our drum loop, we add it all in, we color code it, boom. It's like, now we're into the mixing, all that stuff. So for sure, man, I keep adding to my lists of ideas and things to do. And my whole goal is just to make this an awesome FL Studio platform, so you can learn.
It's working.
Good.
You're progressing it well, in fairness. So I have to give you that. Thanks.
Thank you. But I do get what you're saying, that you want to see that, from beginning to end, that hands-on, and for sure it will come.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Brilliant. That's all from my side anyway. I don't think I have anything else. But thanks for your time.
Okay.
Taking much of it up. Thank you.
Oh no, this was awesome. This was great. Okay, well, we will be in touch through email, man. So thank you so much for being a member. This has been awesome.
Okay, thanks very much, Riley. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.